And we are live once again. Welcome, everyone. You are listening to another episode of the Solvable Mysteries Podcast. This is episode number 52. My name is Juras, and as every week, I'm joined by my co-host, joining me all the way from California, Glenn Highcove. How are you feeling, man?
Hey, doing okay so far. I went to the beach, so I hope I don't get the COVID. But yeah, I don't know. Every week I keep on thinking things are going to get calmed down, and they seem to get crazier for different reasons we won't get into. But yeah. Other than that, I'm super happy to be talking about stuff today. As you and I were just saying earlier, off stage, we've been having such an awesome period of growth for the show. It feels like people are really engaged. And case in point, today we're going to talk about something that we talked about earlier, and it's I think as of right now it's our number one show. It's always like number one in our listings on YouTube, and I expect once it gets released in the podcast, it will be one of the top downloaded episodes as well. But we got a lot of user feedback about Amy Lynn Bradley.
Exactly.
Which was earlier episode of ours. What week was that we did that? I feel like it was a while ago.
Man, it was a while ago. I believe it was episode 20?
22.
22,
22,
right?
there it is. Yeah. So wow, that was. I mean, we've literally done. It was more than half our show ago.
Man,
it was
like
January
11th.
Ago.
I can see we uploaded on January 11th. Yeah, so it was a while ago. At this point, it's like, oh yeah, we've done like an extra 30 episodes on top of that, so that's pretty cool.
and yet, like, people, I mean, it's so funny for a case that I'd never heard of. I think I mentioned that when we did the episode. I'd never even heard of it, and it's like, for us, it's right up there with like Madeline McCann and John Bonet, and seems to be like it's even more.
Yeah,
so that's pretty amazing.
Just a quick note to that end. I actually did hear about this case, and I had not have heard about either John Bonet or Madeline McCann. So I think it's like I think this case now, I'm not really certain if that is the case, but I feel like this case is more of an internationally followed case, basically because of some of the visual assets we will go through on this show that show some interesting people that may or may not be Amy in the future after her disappearance. So, I think 90% of the people that are watching this probably know what I'm talking about, but whatever. So I think that's the case because I definitely knew about it, and I always thought that this case was really freaky and creepy as well. So what I guess we decided to do on this week's show is not to go from scratch, since we have done episode number 22 and we pretty much talked about the case. I feel like this is going to be more of a reactionary episode, as well as since that episode is doing really good on our YouTube channel, as well as I'm pretty sure it's going to do well on the podcast apps. It should be on the podcast apps probably 2 weeks in the future from when we release this one. And I feel like it's gonna do well there, and the quality on our episode number 22 was still not there. I think the quality of our episodes has really increased ever since, I would say, we entered the 40s. I mean, since episode 40 or whatnot. So just because of the fact that, it's such a popular case and a lot of people take interest in it, and there are actually a lot of really curious people who are constantly trying to find new information and start new discussions about this case, I think a better quality episode was just bound to happen. It pretty much correlates to what we have been doing for the last 2 weeks with the John Bonet Ramsey episode, where we did also a follow-up episode. John Bonet Ramsey was our episode number 2 actually, and the quality on that was really bad. So we had to go back there and pretty much take another look, and we're doing the same for Amy Lynn Bradley. Now for the next week, we're definitely gonna be doing a case that we've never done before, something brand new, but it's almost like a spring cleaning season for us on this podcast. We just really want to get these really popular episodes that we have done in the past and then just really polish it up, as well as episode number 22. the first episode on Amy Lynn Bradley actually had some dislikes on our YouTube channel, and people actually did not agree with us. So it's almost like we have to go back just for those people that did not agree with us and really look into what they said, and just to see if we could find common ground this time around. So this was a big intro on my end. I don't know, man. I think we could get into the actual case, just in case some people are hearing about Amy Lynn Bradley for the first time. So I'll do the quick introduction, and then I'll give some time for you to give your own opinions. Is that okay, man?
Yeah, it's perfect.
Okay, so Amy Lynn Bradley, at the time of her disappearance, she was 23 years of age. Now, if you're watching this on our YouTube channel, you could pretty much see the Bradley's family. So it consisted on the left hand side, Brad Bradley, Amy Bradley in the middle. Now there's her father, Ron Bradley, as well as Amy's mother, Iva Bradley. So pretty much Ron Bradley's employer at that time in 1998 had sort of, as an incentive for Ron's great performance at his work, he sort of gave him, as well as some of his co-workers, a gift, and the gift was pretty much a cruise ship on the Rhapsody of the Seas. So that's pretty much the gist of the story, how they ended up going to this cruise ship. Now, Ron's daughter, Amy Lynn Bradley, who is the main, I guess, the victim in this case, at first she was a little bit hesitant to go on this trip because for some reason she had a bad feeling about cruise ships. And we talked a little bit about how cruise ships suck on our first episode on the Amy Lynn Bradley case, and I'm still sticking to that and of thinking, especially after some new information came out. I'm definitely not going on cruise ships, so I don't think I can find common ground with people who think that cruise ships are amazing. I mean, it's just not my thing, so that's never gonna happen. But she was hesitant to go on this cruise ship. She was also a trained lifeguard, so she definitely knew how to swim. It was not like she was afraid of water. And she was also a basketball player, really good at her university for basketball. And she pretty much was an athletic person, or definitely seemed like someone who could pretty much take care of herself fairly well in interesting situations where some people may not be able to take care of themselves. She seemed like she was independent, and she was really, she was pretty in a pretty good shape also. So they go on this cruise ship. The cruise ship starts on March 21st in 1998. So basically the Bradley family board the ship, whatever. They go on, they do cruise ship activities for the next 3 days, and everything is going fine. At first, Amy was like, I don't want to be on this ship. But then once the cruise, I guess, started, once she spent some time on that ship, she actually started enjoying herself, and everything was pretty cool for her. But then again, 3 days later, after the initial cruise ship, I guess, the vacation had began on March 24th, Bradley had been drinking with the ship's band, Blue Orchid, in the dance club. There was this big dance club situation. We talked a little bit about it on our first Amy Lynn Bradley episode. Now, one of the band members' name was Alistair Douglas, known as Yellow. He will come to play in this podcast. He will take a pretty big role in this podcast, I mean. They pretty much partied. Officially, they partied at around 1 a.m. The parents of Amy, Ron, and Iva sticked with them at this party until 1 a.m. They went to bed. Now, Brad and Amy sort of partied on a little bit longer in the night. I believe Brad Bradley, the brother of Amy, he partied up until 3:30 a.m. or was it 3:35? Nevertheless, it was around 3:30 a.m. He goes to his apartment. Then 5 minutes later, Amy goes back to her apartment as well. They stick around on the porch of this apartment. They have a little chit chat. Amy mentions to her brother Brad that she will be picking up cigarettes in the next stop, because the cruise ship definitely stops on different locations throughout the Caribbean. She said that she's gonna pick out some more cigarettes because she was a smoker. And pretty much nothing seemed suspicious to Brad. He goes back to bed. Amy actually decides to sleep on that porch. Now Amy's father, Ron Bradley, at around somewhere, now this is not clear when Rod actually spotted Amy on this porch. Some people state it was 5:15, some people state it was 5:30 a.m. Somewhere around 5:30 a.m. Bradley's father Ron saw her asleep on the cabin balcony, but then he was like, okay, so she's sleeping on the balcony, everything's cool, maybe she had a long night, let her sleep, we have a big day tomorrow, screw it, I'm going to bed, and then we will have to pretty much get up pretty early for the breakfast, so I'll just let her sleep on this balcony. Now when he got back up at 6 a.m., so around 30 minutes later, he goes back to this balcony in their apartment. He doesn't see Amy. Amy's nowhere to be seen, but her shoes, this is a very important detail, her shoes are still in the balcony. So she's not there, but her shoes are there, but there are no cigarettes. So she had in this balcony on herself, she had both cigarettes as well as shoes. So the shoes stayed, but the cigarettes were also gone. So he goes, he searches for his daughter, doesn't find her, pretty much informs the cruise ship that Amy's missing. The cruise ship people, the captain, the service people, they don't want to do anything about it because it's a 23-year-old person. They're thinking she's probably just in the toilet or something. They didn't really think much of it. The Bradleys plead to the cruise captain to not let anyone out the ship, to make an announcement. The captain does a pretty rational thing, probably the same thing that I would do also. He decides to not inform anyone, just to not, it's a big business, the cruise ship. It has around 1,000 rooms, so there's a bunch of people traveling on that cruise ship, and he made a rational decision to not inform anyone, to not get people in distress or whatever. So it was a rational move on his part, I believe, and basically, to get the long story short, they board Curacao. They look for Bradley in Curacao in the hopes that she may have just basically got off the boat. They can't find her. They decide to stay on Curacao Island. The Rhapsody of the Seas sails away to its next destination. The Bradleys contact the FBI. The FBI say that they can only come there in 24 hours. So for the next 24 hours, they're panicking. They don't know what's happening. They don't know anything. They go back to the cruise ship. They search the cruise ship with the FBI on the next ship's destination. They find nothing. They find no sign of Bradley. And that's pretty much the disappearance of Amy Lynn Bradley. Now, there's a bunch of details like Alistair Douglas, the waiters, photos emerging of Amy Lynn Bradley throughout the years, multiple sightings. Now, this is what the podcast should be about. We should be getting into the details of how not necessarily how she disappeared, but why she disappeared, why no one has been able to find her, and really trying to figure out the most plausible the most plausible explanation for this case. So I know this has been a really big introduction on my end once again. So I'll just let you give us our take on the whole case, man.
Yeah, so that's a great summary. I would add in that just to kind of structure what we talk about after that review, and that's I think a good way to look at it, including mentioning some of the key clues and the key suspects and timelines. So when we looked at the user comments and feedback on this episode, I felt like it came into three general categories. So one of the categories was that some of the viewers and listeners thought that we had underestimated the scope or the ability of human trafficking in, I guess, the Caribbean and Latin America, and specifically Curacao, to kidnap her. One person, and I'll address this pretty quickly. One person mentioned that us calling her a prostitute, if that's what she was forced into, wasn't correct. And I guess let's be really correct there. She could be forced into work as a sex slave, working as a prostitute. I think maybe the person resented that we were almost implying like she was working for money for herself. Certainly, that does not seem to be the case. I don't think if we gave that impression. Let us just straighten it out right now. We do not think that she would ever go into work in that capacity of her own volition. So yeah, let's be
at least initially.
Yeah. I mean, who knows what would happen in Stockholm syndrome and things like that for somebody that's forced into something or feels like they can't go back. But yeah, I mean, I think so. Further, we're going to talk about human trafficking. The second criticism, or was more that it wasn't even really a criticism. Some of it was sort of agreeing with us and saying that we had mentioned this before. There was a lot of concern from her family about her and her feelings about the trip that they'd never really explained. And this includes, you and I both listened to an episode of Case File, which is a great true crime, Australian true crime like podcast or YouTube show, and they take a different slant. I think theirs is more about telling a story and not what you and I do, which is sort of two guys having a conversation and talking it over. But yeah, that was interesting. So I listened to that, and it was pretty interesting to hear that, because that was one of the things they stressed on. So I'm going to visit that real quickly, and then finally, there were some folks that just flat out agreed that our general conclusions, which at the time were that there's this physical evidence seemed to point towards either a suicide or an accidental death, and definitely I'll get into that to rethink that and to second guess that, because that's was brought up in the Case File episode, that the FBI and the family had both looked at that and discounted it with extreme prejudice. It's worth bringing up and just reviewing again, like what's the simplest explanation? What are these other explanations point to? How valid are they? And is it worth thinking about it a different way? So I think it's probably best just to get into the elephant in the room is, the human trafficking element. So I did a little digging into human trafficking, and no surprise, there are literally millions of people that are trafficked across the world, and especially in the part of the world that I live in here, adjacent to Latin America and the Caribbean. I mean, it's pretty awful. A majority of those people are either forced or coerced into some form of sex work or prostitution. And it is a pretty insidious thing. Now, one of the things that I couldn't help but notice, Case File made a big focus on this as well, and pointed out that Curacao specifically. Here's the interesting thing is, like, I see this actually in my wife's home country as well. If you're a country that's in the middle, like if you're between supply and demand for anything, you're kind of like the highway for whatever that thing is, right?
Exactly.
So yeah, so like this is why Central America and the Caribbean have been the middlemen of things like drug trafficking, which because cocaine and to some degree other drugs are produced in one area, and then the marketplace is over here in North America with some in between. So the idea is maybe that you become very good at helping move those goods along. And apparently human resources, the worst kind, the black market human resources of people that have been forced into work, some form of slavery, really. Yeah, surprise. They're sort of in between these major metropolitan areas. You also have, one of the things that's important to call out is in these areas, a lot of the directions of where this trafficking is coming from is frankly going, if I had to classify direction, I'd say mostly north. So just you have a lot of immigrants that are moving from southern countries to northern countries. Like I live in a country that's like that, where both legal and illegal immigration happens in a tremendous level. They're mostly coming from the south of us, because that's no surprise. There's a lot of opportunity here. The jobs pay the most here in America. Yeah, we have people immigrating and coming from other parts of the world, but we for sure have a lot of products and services and people getting moved. It's also important to differentiate that human trafficking is not the same thing as like human smuggling necessarily. They can coincide. So you do have people, and I think this is probably some of what people think of when they think of human trafficking. The fact is, a lot of what was going on when I researched, like specifically for Curacao, well, it turns out most of those people being trafficked, a lot of them are, and probably started out as immigrants. So they wanted to immigrate. Some of them were certainly kidnapped or otherwise maybe sold to people, but I think some degree it's someone that was offered one thing and there was a bait and switch. So specifically, Venezuela is one of the countries that stuck out as one of the places that had the most human trafficking from. Is Venezuela right now, when you and I are making this show, is an extremely desperate situation. It's kind of a long story why that is, and I definitely don't want to get political about it, because there's lots of different points of view.
Yeah, definitely.
about how it got there and what's making it worse, and whether there was better ways to approach what's going on. It's really tragic, though. I think that the truth of it is, I mean, people are starting to starve to a level that like caused world crises when it was happening in Africa in the 1980s. Like, I feel like you're getting to that sort of Ethiopia or Somalia level starvation, and it's causing problems. It's causing a lot of havoc. If you have people that can't eat, if you can't eat, what are you going to do? You're going to move where the food is, right? So just like the Sam Kinison routine. So like countries adjacent to Venezuela, like Colombia, I think Brazil is also adjacent. Yeah, they're seeing a lot of people crossing the border. They're seeing kind of their own impacts from people immigrating either legally or illegally. I think that, though, is important to point out that when you have some people that are really desperate to get out of an area, that probably makes them more likely to be trafficked. Now, what I didn't see, and what I didn't hear in the case file episode, nor have I really seen anybody really able to prove it, other than some of the anecdotal stories we're going to get into in a second, from the alleged witnesses that say that they spotted Amy, some of whom have been proved to be fraudulent. What we haven't really seen is a lot of Westerners. And by Westerners, let me straighten out that term. People from the U.S. or Canada, let's say, so North Americans who, let's say, were born or raised, or consider themselves legal residents or citizens of Canada or the United States. I don't see a lot. I don't know that I've seen any verified claims or incidents, other than this one being cited as a potential one, of people like that being kidnapped and forced into, let's say, sex slavery. It makes a really salacious story. I think that's maybe why, because it is sort of like a man bites dog story, where it's something. And I think some of it's too also psychologically. If you're here in the U.S. and you've lived like a really privileged, happy life, you've grown up with a lot of resources and maybe an upper middle class home, certainly like Amy Lynn Bradley did. Grew up in a pretty nice outfit. In fact, this vacation was a gift from her father's new employer.
Yeah.
That was the whole reason why they were doing it. It was a free. I mean, can you imagine? I mean, some people can barely eke out a living, and in the United States, it's so great that you can have an employer. I mean, I've had this too. I've had trips to super expensive Miami hotels paid for by my workplaces, or not even by my work, by like other companies sponsoring me just to be there, to hear, to be part of a conversation. So that's
pretty crazy, man.
Yeah, can you imagine? I mean, even for me, I'm there and I'm like, I can't even believe I'm here. This is like, Bel Air kind of stuff, and like it's paid for, right? So yeah, I mean, so like you feel really lucky. So imagine what a like nightmare it is. It's like something out of like an action film gone wrong, or a horror film.
Exactly.
To think that like, oh my gosh, you could be not only just taken to like a part of the developing world where the lifestyle and customs and all the assumptions you have about life are suddenly gone, and you're out of your element. You don't feel protected, and not only that, you're being forced into it would probably I would say that the kind of work someone like Amy would be forced into under that scenario is kind of the ultimate nightmare for a lot of people, and that rightfully so. So okay, so that's what they say. The problem is, from my perspective, even after hearing the stories, even after hearing some of the accusations and kind of fishiness, like there was a lot of fishiness.
By the way, just a quick interruption here. I sort of have prepared to go a little bit into the fishiness that we have not talked about during our first time we talked about this case on episode number 22. Now the fishiness involved that I will want to talk about will mostly be just surrounding not necessarily the overall geopolitical sphere of human trafficking in the Caribbean, just basically the fishiness that went down in the cruise ship. So now I looked back at the weird situations that took place in this there are some weird connections to one of our other episodes that we did back in the day. So I definitely want to spend at least, let's say, 15 to 20 minutes talking about the fishiness. So just for us to have that in our, just mentally for us to know that we sort of need to get back to the fishiness, because I feel like we have missed points on our first attempt at this case.
Yeah, that's actually a perfect segue. So yeah, let's get into it. So
right.
They on the show a case file, they mentioned, they alluded to this, that apparently the crew members, some of whom were international, so like not Americans, and that's actually part of the reason why these ships are registered internationally, is that they don't have to obey U.S. labor law and pay people minimum wage. So can you imagine if you work on a cruise ship and this is your job every day and every week? You're seeing the same coworkers. You're living around your coworkers. You're not even getting to see your family. You're seeing the same people every day. So I think there's a really strong temptation to interact socially with the passengers, even when it's not allowed. Like Yellow, the sort of the semi-suspect in this by some people's measures.
I feel like he's a pretty big suspect now that I look back at the details, and
just his like proximity to it.
Definitely.
He's definitely worth asking some questions. But yeah, I mean, he was actually fired for having social interactions with a passenger. So they have rules about it, but I think it's really tempting, especially because that's probably part of the reason why you get a cruise ship job, is you want to see the world, you want to meet people from other places. I mean, I know when I go down to the Caribbean where my wife's from, I mean, people are just curious, it's just like, we don't get to talk to a lot of Americans down here, or, even if you do, it's some dumb tourist that just got off a cruise ship like one of these, not somebody who's like hanging out with you all week or 3 weeks and, getting to know each other. It's just sort of nice. I think it's like, sometimes it's a small town thing too. It's like, I'm from a pretty big city, Los Angeles, and sometimes when you're from like a lot of these Caribbean countries are really just like small towns, or they literally have small towns in them. So some of it's just small town sensibility where you just, I don't know. I think it's that. And also, she was attractive. It seems like the crew members found her attractive. So some of like what I kind of got from the way the family was interacting, because apparently the crew members started kind of chatting them up and wanted to kind of go out socially and hang out and kind of show them the ropes. And I gotta say, this is me. So this is me reacting of like how I was before I married my wife, knew my wife from, you know, a country that's in the same area, and after kind of understanding like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like I don't know how to put this a nice way. I feel like the family was being a little bit snobby in a way that's kind of typical for like maybe people from the US or England about people from developing countries, where I think they felt, you know, it wasn't their culture. They felt a little bit out of their element. And you know what? I mean, they may not just, like I said, I mean, I even see it here, even in America. I mean, there's certainly people that react kind of weird to each other just for being, you know, we live next to each other, and you'll have people that are like, don't really like their neighbors that are from some other part of the world, or, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that still happens, you know,
Exactly.
even though
Right.
it's getting better, but I've seen it happen with the most tolerant person. It's kind of a natural human reaction to be a little bit reserved when confronted with something that's not your normal routine. And that's some of that. There's reasons for that. It's not always good, and I think, you know, it's good to weigh it out. But for whatever reason, Amy and her brother weren't like super happy to really go do that. They were like, I think they just kind of wanted to have a normal little trip with their parents, and they weren't looking to go have like some great time partying out with the
However,
locals. Yeah.
However, I just
Except,
wanna, I just wanna quickly mention the fact that you know, there were the story about the waiters. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. Like some waiters, during the trip, you know, when I guess the Bradley family was just dining, minding their own business. I feel like some of the waiters actually came up to Amy Lynn Bradley. They were sort of like talking with her, like chatting her up per
yeah.
se, and their main goal, I guess, was to get Amy Lynn Bradley when they dock in Curacao, basically in Aruba, to go to this place right here that you can see on the screen. This is Carlos and Charlie's bar in Aruba. Now, this is where the first weird situation in this case that we did not mention on our first episode. Now, this is the same place where this woman called Natalie Holloway was last seen, basically 7 years later. So I don't know, man. I don't want to go too conspiracy theory on this case, but this could almost lead towards like some sort of I don't know, man, cruise ship, Carlos and Charlie's prostitution, kidnapping, gang situation. You know what I mean? But okay, so first of all, we have to get this situation out of the way. So what are your thoughts on it?
I mean, and I think that was the situation. This is exactly the kind of situation I'm talking about, where, you know, I guess the family felt like there was the waiters that were being, like, I guess from their point of view, overly friendly or social, maybe making assumptions about what people were interested in talking to them, and then I mean, just sort of similar things to that, where it's like, okay, look, they're just not interested. I mean, I think this is exactly what our commenters were pointing to. They're like, hey, there could be some whole pipeline of like trying to get Westerners into sex slavery, you know, human trafficking. I guess, and I would answer in response, wow, that sounds like a lot of infrastructure that's supposedly all ready and waiting for, like, besides Natalie and Amy, nobody we've ever heard of. That's my problem is like, if this was happening, why do we not have more faces like this to sort of do our episodes about? I feel like this is, you know, like, I think I gave this example in another episode. You're really asking for trouble. I mean, look, like no joke. If you mess around with the wrong American, worst case scenario, you can end up with a SEAL team kicking down your door and getting dragged off to Gitmo or something like
Exactly.
That's a reality. That's been a reality, not just since the terrorism stuff. Even back in the 1990s, there was a guy from Pakistan who came and shot up the CIA. Like, literally went to the parking lot of the CIA.
It's a bad idea.
And and he pulled out an AK and shot up a bunch of people, and then he ran off to Pakistan somehow. And we actually,
how did he manage to do that?
I know, it's baffling, right? So like so much for U.S. security, right? But anyways, we tracked down this guy somehow he made it back to Pakistan.
You track him down
We
in
literally-
Pakistan, not
We tracked him down in
in
Pakistan.
Pakistan.
We
You
landed
couldn't do
in
it in America,
Yeah,
right?
in the U.S. The U.S. we could do
You
it,
had
but
to do it
in
in
Pakistan, we actually landed an airplane illegally out of a Pakistani airport. Sent a team to his house, DNA tested him on the spot or fingerprinted him or whatever.
Yeah.
Jerked him out of his house, put him on the plane, and yanked him back to the U.S. So, like, you know what I mean? Like that's the kind of stuff you're dealing with, and like, look, I'll fully admit, the unfortunate reality is somebody who doesn't come, someone who's not as valued in society for the right and wrong reasons as Amy, someone who doesn't have a middle class family and the media on their side, someone who comes from a disadvantaged, you know, social and financial situation. For sure there's people that are born impoverished, abandoned, you know, etc.
Yeah.
And yeah, I could see that person potentially, you know, getting funneled out of the US for sure. I'm not saying it never happens, but I think of someone on a cruise ship who's sort of from that like top 10% of wealth in the society. I feel like that person is, you're just asking for like for like
Yeah.
just a
I mean,
storm to fall on your head. I mean,
just
I'm
in
not saying
general-
criminals don't do dumb things. I'm just saying, yeah,
Exactly.
you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then again, you know, if this was sort of a setup where Amy Lynn Bradley was sort of trafficked to some sort of an international whatever prostitution ring, I think the only reason for doing that is because she is of a certain ethnicity, if you know what I mean. Like she was, you know, a Caucasian woman, because you could pretty much, I think, have an easier time trying to traffic, you know, people from South America, since, you know, pretty much Venezuela is literally right next to Curacao, you know what I mean? And it's probably a lot easier for, you know, these traffickers to get people from there. So I think the only reason would be either A, she was spotted by someone on that ship and someone was really liked her, you know, and it was like a situation like that, or there were actually a prostitution trafficking ring operating, having this really, I would say, advanced scheme to get these people, you know, off the ship and into sexual slavery. Now, the thing is, there are actually a lot more people that go missing from cruise ships than we realize, I think, you know, because I've seen the numbers and it's pretty crazy. Like, I definitely don't want to state the actual numbers, but like in the hundreds, you know, over the last decades, it's in the hundreds that people go missing from cruise ships. So it's not like Amy, for say, was the only person who went missing from a cruise ship in the Caribbean in the last 20 years. I feel like there's definitely been over 100 people who went missing for various reasons. Now, most of the people that go missing in the cruise ships, I think, I would say the high percentage of those people go missing because they are necessarily either commit suicide or they fall overboard by accident. You know, I'm definitely gonna say that most of those people are kidnapped into sexual slavery, but what are the chances that all of the, you know, 100+ people, or maybe even 200+ people that went missing from the cruise ships in the last 20 years, is it too crazy to say that some of them could have been kidnapped? Now, you know, I don't think it's that crazy, you know, to fathom that it is possible, you know, to do this.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't put it as just to me it just seems less probable just because of the level of effort. I mean, who knows? I mean, criminals have done lots of dumb and desperate and risky things. I mean, I'm looking at a list of cruise ship passengers right now, and I can't help but notice that an overwhelmingly, I would say at least 50%, an overwhelming amount of them are male, which kind of matches with maybe a higher rate of suicide and like just doing risky things, and maybe you end up falling off the rail. So yeah, I mean, that's my thought. I think the other thing that, you know, is worth addressing then, now that we've addressed that, is, you know, so here's the other weird thing is,
wait, could we pause it right here, because I'm not sure what you're gonna talk about next, but I feel like if you don't talk about this particular detail, then we're definitely messing up the timeline. Are you gonna talk about the photos that went missing? Because if you're not,
Yeah. Oh yeah, you're right. So yeah,
I
let's.
think we should go back to the photos really quickly. You want to take it away, or
Yeah, I'll even lump the photos. Let's lump it all into
perfect?
one group, because we have the
Perfect.
photos and we have the so-called eyewitness accounts, and in both of them, and here's the interesting thing is, so a couple of the eyewitness accounts have almost certainly been proven to be false. There was at one point this very very devious person that marketed themselves as ex-special forces, and that he had apparently he did have some kind of team of
Frank
special
Jones.
forces. Frank Jones, yeah, running this like wannabe A-team like mission supposedly to save Amy, and he really strung the family along. I mean, they say that they spent, between their own money and money that was spent in a special fund that was supposed to be for people, it was supposed to be money that was put aside for this kind of situation. I don't know how they got permission to spend it on this really questionable person without any proof. But at one point, when he claims that he's observing, he's running surveillance, and for whatever reason he can't snatch her away, seems stupid. Like, why wouldn't you just pull a gun and stick it in their face? That he couldn't snatch her away from her kidnappers. He claimed that at one point he actually made some fake photographs. So he actually they at one point he had one of the ex-Navy SEALs or whatever, ex-Special Forces guys, put on a blonde wig for one of the photos, and then for one of the other photos he had they paid a woman and they painted some tattoos on her that matched Amy's tattoos, and they took a picture of her from the back and they used that as their proof of life photo. Along with this, there was another woman who I think was local who was also claiming that, and her own son said that it was all lies.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, you have, I think, between that and I guess we'll go into the photos in a second. But I mean, right, the fact that there was a reward, the fact that it was high profile. We saw that with John Bonet, with even people admitting to the murder that had nothing to do with it. People just want attention. People smell money. People smell opportunity. Even if they don't have a plan, somehow they think maybe, they'll get something out of this, which seemed to be the case for a couple of these people. And in the case of this guy, scumbag, he literally, defrauded them out of something like $120,000.
I think in grand total it was like around $200,000.
Wow.
Yeah,
I mean,
in early 2000s money. In early 2000s money, so this is like a $500,000.
It just horrible human being.
However,
yeah, I mean, he wrecked them financially.
I just wanna just quickly, because I know we're gonna move past this Frank Jones character soon, and we won't return to him again in this show. So what I'm thinking, and I actually looked into like what the people on Reddit think as well regarding the situation with the Frank Jones. I think the family members had to be that delusional at that point. You know what I mean? They had to be delusional at that point. Like, this guy was
just
desperate as hell. Like, you're sending this guy so much money. Now, how much would a trip to Aruba or like Curacao would cost you? Now, this guy says he knows where they're. If my daughter, for say, went missing, and I hire some expert and who could pretty much bring her back, and he pretty much tells me we have like the coordinates, I'd be doing everything to get to Curacao, like, and be there. I wouldn't be just waiting for the call that we have extracted her. You know what I'm saying? Like, I would definitely go there. I don't care. Like, the money that because it was like from the $200,000 that this guy like pretty much took from the family. Only $20,000 were from their personal savings, and another $180,000 were from the Help Find Amy Lynn Bradley fund or whatever. So you can definitely, take a week off from work just to fly and see if everything's legit before you send out the money. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
I don't know, man. It just seemed really weird. And then they found out later on that it was a big scam, and he really was just partying and drinking with his friends. Now, some of the friends were actual real ex-military special ops guys, and I was like, how did you get those guys to do this? Because they could probably get the money doing actual rescues, without
Yeah.
messing up their reputation. So
They could go work for Blackwater and
right.
make a lot of money in the combat zone. They must have thought it was easy work. You go to the Caribbean, you're making some kind of salary. It's like a paid vacation. Yeah, by the way, this wasn't the only kind of questionable thing the family did in their I guess semi-deranged mental state after this whole thing went down. They actually got in trouble for perjury at one point when they had Amy declared dead, and then came up with there was some kind of discrepancy in the number of people that supposedly had seen her. So something backfired on them legally, that they ended up getting in a little bit of legal trouble. So
I think they claimed legally that the only sightings were of Amy in distress. Like all the sightings throughout the years were pretty much of a woman who looked just like Amy, who had those tattoos, and she was always in distress. She was always around goons, like Colombian, South American goons with her that were like sort of bossing her around, and pretty much they didn't take into consideration like multiple eyewitness accounts of Amy Lynn Bradley, a woman who looked like Amy Lynn Bradley, who was having a good time, just in the streets, just in the supermarkets, like the times when Amy Lynn Bradley was allegedly sighted not being in distress. Like they really pushed that agenda that she was, that she was definitely in distress, and that like yeah, but they didn't. Yeah, they pretty much. What I'm saying is they definitely didn't take into consideration the fact that Amy Lynn Bradley may have ventured off on her own and started a new life over time and didn't want anything to do with them. They definitely disregarded that fact, even though the sightings that there were so much sightings, and we only hear about the sightings where she's in distress. We're not hearing about the sightings where she's having, allegedly a good time. Now, I think I have a picture here. Actually, I wasn't going to use this asset. Now, this is another picture from I believe Curacao. And if you could jump to our YouTube channel, you could pretty much see a woman resembling Amy Lynn Bradley having a good time. So not all of the sightings in this case are of a woman in distress.
Now, the one thing I will jump in just to play devil's advocate with what you and I both pretty much agree on. There will be some people that will post, like if you look at the official like U.S. page, like U.S. government page or some of the other. I forget if it's FBI or there's also like different nonprofits that talk about like human trafficking statistics. The one thing they'll point out, they'll say, hey, just so you know, just because somebody doesn't appear to be under duress or that they seem like they have a chance and they don't take it doesn't mean that they're not being trafficked or that they aren't. They said sometimes it's more complicated than it looks. So I'm just going to put that out there because someone might come at us with that. And it's like, okay, yeah, true enough. I mean, it could be she could be looking like she's having a good time and still conceivably be a prisoner, or in other words, doing something against her will or not be in full control of her faculties. But yeah, to your point,
that's a good.
This is one of the things that
that's a good one. Now, I just wanted to make sure we go back to those photos. Oh yeah. So basically, the cruise ship, right? So the Rhapsody of the Seas, this ship right here. This is another thing that pretty much now when I found this out, I'm like definitely sticking away from cruise ships, at least cruise ships like this. The cruise ship takes pictures of you all the time. Like there are people on the cruise ship that take pictures of you. They post those pictures publicly, at least they did in the Rhapsody of the Seas back in 1998, and then you could buy them. Or someone could just snatch them up because they're like just pinned to the wall or something. So in this case, actually pictures were taken of Amy Lynn Bradley in the cruise ship. Now, no one's even asking any questions. Can I take your pictures and then post them on like the main board of the ship? They just take those pictures and then you can buy them. If you don't buy them, then they pretty much like throw them in the trash. So that's pretty much what happens. So the pictures were missing from the board of Amy Lynn Bradley. So yeah, this is a weird one. This is a weird one. I'm not gonna lie, this is a weird one. Why would those pictures be missing? I mean, either it's the family members of Amy Lynn Bradley definitely exaggerated the situation and made it seem super weird. But if everyone else's pictures were there, but Amy's was gone, I don't know how you explain that.
Yeah, well, I do. I have one, and this actually came from the case file episode and from some of the other research about, the main photographer. So there was a videographer, and, back in our other episode, we covered this footage. There was, one of the reasons why they honed in on Yellow was because there was this footage of him and Amy slow dancing, different times of the night, and, this whole thing. And so he mentions that, I mean, it's good and bad here. So the thing is, I think one of the main administrators of the cruise ship, or the cruise ship company, came to him and actually asked him for his originals, his taping originals, his masters, and he's like, oh well, I don't give those to anybody, like that's my property. And he said, oh well, the FBI needs to see this footage, and he gave him some kind of copy. And then supposedly the FBI never looked at any of this stuff. There were no. I mean, there's a whole other tangent we could go down, which we won't because we already covered it, about the FBI and how good a job they did or didn't do on this. But why I am mentioning this is, there was a point where word got around when they thought the initial explanation was that she had probably killed herself, and it's sort of a big bummer to the whole ship, right? Like nobody wants a reminder that one of your fellow guests just jumped off the ship and died during the night. So I think just from that, it sounds like there may be really why he wanted that video was to make sure that she didn't accidentally end up. I mean, lots of reasons, but I think for some of it is, I think like they just sanitized it, like, okay, right away, we're just going to find all the photos of her. And, because some of what you buy is a compilation. So it's not just you of yourself. It's of like, oh, here's you and all your other friends on the trip. Because they don't know like who's friends with who necessarily.
Doing the stupid dance,
Yeah. It's like a yearbook, it's like a high school yearbook or a class yearbook where there's just a bunch of pictures.
But it's so bad. It's so, I just have to put a pin in this. Like, this is so bad.
Oh, yeah.
Like how you let someone film you, like you're doing this super stupid dance. Like, look at these people. They're oh my god, I don't want anyone. First of all, I'd never be dancing there. That's the first thing. I'd never be on that ship in the first place. But if I was there, I don't want someone to film me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What if, and then some other people would have me, and look at these angles. Yo, what are these zoom ins? What is this?
Well, they're gonna edit that out, I hope. But yeah. I mean, it's well, like you said, it kind of goes hand in hand with the reasons why we don't want to be in a cruise ship. And here's one of the reasons: is this is their space, and probably one of the things that you agreed to when you came on board was that they could film you and do whatever they want, either for security purposes or for this product they're going to sell you. It's like I don't know if you've ever run into this, but in a lot of theme parks, they have a camera that takes pictures. You don't have a choice. They have a camera that takes a picture of you at like the biggest, you know what I mean? And like
when you
so
puke
like
and stuff, and then someone else
when
buys
you're
it.
like, or when you're like and like you can buy that picture, but even if you don't buy it, someone else and they're right next to you. So
that's so bad.
So like that's kind of the same thing. So I mean, from my perspective, it's not really so mysterious. I think they were like, oh my god, like this is. I bet you they do this every time. Every time somebody, because it seems like it happens often enough, somebody disappears off the ship, falls off the ship, jumps off the ship, because it happens a lot. By the way, I mean, case in point, Golden Gate Bridge, it used to be you could have a really cool, like, walk across. You can still walk across it, but it used to be.
Bridge? No?
Yeah, exactly. The big red bridge in San Francisco. It's pretty cool because you can actually there's like a pedestrian walkway on the side. I mean, you're next to like traffic and stuff, but still, it's pretty awesome. It's a good little hike across and back. But they, I think in the past few years, so many people jump off that bridge to kill themselves.
Yikes!
Like it happens a lot. It happens a lot more than you think. So many people kill themselves that they finally put like a stupid net or something underneath it, and like. They put something used to the railing used to be like maybe kind of mid stomach high.
Yeah.
I think they put something up there so you can't jump. It's awful. So I think cruise ships are just like bridges. There's just enough of those people that are like, you know what, I'm gonna kind of spend money I don't have on this vacation and then end it. So I feel like that. Yeah, they have their little sanitization
So wait,
process where they're like,
how do you then explain the missing photos of Amy?
yeah.
Did
I
I
think
miss something? Or...
yeah. So what I'm saying is they literally went to their photographers or to their database of photos, and they're like, okay, well, we're gonna pull the photos anyway. You know what I mean? And they're just like, let's just pull all these out.
So
Like,
the
we're not gonna.
security and the staff of the cruise
Yeah.
ship took those pictures.
Yeah, because
And
they're
then
like, this is a big
the
bummer.
family
We're
members
not gonna have her in the mix. Yeah.
and then the family members almost sensationalized the situation, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They're making a big deal out of something. I mean, I feel like they would maybe do the same thing if someone killed himself at like a high school.
Right.
If someone dies of cancer, they're gonna have like a special page for them or whatever. But
I get your point. However,
suicides are special because suicides don't even get publicized in the news because there's a copycat effect. So people don't realize this. Sorry, let me just filibuster a little longer. Okay. Then I'll let it go. 1 point. So out of all, for every gun murder in the United States, there are 1.6 gun suicides. Oh. So there's almost twice as many gun suicides as gun murders, but people don't realize it because they don't talk about it. Unless someone like kills, like another family member and then themselves. Oh. Yeah, they don't. There's been a policy for a long time in most cases. People jump off of parking structures. People do kill themselves all the time, hang themselves, etc. And unless it's someone famous, they don't do it because a lot of reasons. It's a big downer, but also there's a copycat effect. So that like when a famous person kills himself, there's actually a bump in suicides from other people. Jeez. That kind of like, they're like, oh, well, Robin Williams did it, so now I'm going to do it too. Yeah, sad. So, yeah.
Right. So that's sad. What I was going to talk about next, because we sort of have to go back to yellow, man. We have to go back to yellow. We definitely do, man. Because now, I guess we could play this clip a little longer. No, first of all, I think we should go back to the face of this man right now. So I think we should go back to yellow, and then we should also go back to those images of Amy Lynn Bradley that sort of surfaced in 2005 from an alleged prostitution website. Well, it was a prostitution website, I'm sorry, but we have to go back to those images after we talk about yellow. So why I wanted to talk a little bit about yellow right now, since we are like hitting that hour mark soon, I think we should definitely mention him. Yellow was a bassist, I believe, for the Blue Orchid band that Brad as well as Amy were sort of partying with and drinking with. Now, Yellow took interest in Amy Lynn Bradley on this trip, and by Yellow's, I guess, I don't know how would you describe from his official statements or whatever. He didn't make like any official statements, but from what he said to the security and I guess the family and to everyone who accuses him, pretty much the last time he says he was with Amy was at around I believe 3:30 something a.m., right? Like just the last time Yellow saw Amy was at that point when she was, she got out of the disco at 3:30 a.m. and she went back to her room. Now, she definitely did that at 3:30. She left the disco and she went back to her room, and she, the whole situation happened where she ended up sleeping in the balcony. Now, 3 days after her disappearance, when the family members with the FBI flies back to the cruise ship to do a thorough search of the cruise ship, two women run up to Amy's parents and they pretty much say, now this is a big thing in this case, we didn't mention it on our first episode, they say that at 6 a.m. shortly after Ron Bradley Amy's father discovers Amy missing from the balcony. At around the same time when that happens, these women allegedly see Amy with Yellow at the bar next to the disco drinking, and Amy was allegedly drinking a dark substance, either a Coke, because she really liked Coca-Cola, or it was coffee. They couldn't recall for certain, and all of a sudden, they disappear. Because you're probably at the bar next to the disco. These two women are probably doing their own thing. They're not looking at Amy and Yellow. They're not like tracking their every movement. They see him with Amy at one point, and then the other point, oh, they're gone. Whatever. I guess they went somewhere. 10 minutes later, an elevator door opens next to this bar, and who comes out of the elevator door? Yellow. But Amy is nowhere to be seen. Amy is gone. She's pretty much gone, and Yellow just walks out of the elevator room. So I don't know, man. Now this is not enough. These two women that did this sighting, I guess, that reported the sighting, they were polygraphed, and everything came out like legit. They were not lying, at least according to the polygraph. So if they really did see that event, now that would mean that Yellow really did that suspicious stuff. You know what I mean? Because there are theories circulating that he may have sort of taken her to the lower decks, and maybe they sort of maybe the dark substance was drugged and she was put in a garbage bag or laundry bag, something like that, and then somehow smuggled off onto Curacao. Now that's a real theory. Now obviously I know what you're gonna say, that's logistically, why would you go through so much trouble, right? I mean, sure, even when you're working for the ship, when you know that this bullcrap cruise ship takes pictures and videotapes everyone all the time, you know what I mean? Like, hence we have the footage from 3:30. Now this is the footage from before Amy Lynn Bradley goes to bed, you know what I mean, on the balcony. So this is the footage that we are looking at. It's before that happens. And so this was supposed to be the official last sighting of Amy Lynn Bradley with Yellow. However, speculations are that Yellow was seen drinking a black substance with Amy right at the time when Amy went missing. So either she, now before I let you talk about this, now I'm thinking, if this did happen, then two theories jump to my head. Either the first one that I just described, that she was sort of drugged, that dark substance had some sort of a pill or something in it, and she was smuggled off to Curacao. Or the second theory is she was tipsy, she was still a little bit drunk, she just woke up from that nap on the balcony, she goes back, she's still a little bit tipsy, she drinks some more alcohol at this bar. Yellow comes up, he's like, yo Amy, I got some friends in Curacao and we could do drugs. And then Amy's like, okay, let's go do drugs in Curacao. The only reason why she would not tell her parents about that is because she was tipsy and she was gonna do drugs. So she's like, I don't want to tell my parents that I'm a little bit drunk right now and I'm going to do drugs. Now there was a sighting of Amy by a taxi driver. So basically this taxi driver sort of said that he saw a woman who resembled Amy run up to him, frantic, asking for a phone, looking for something, but she wasn't in distress. The taxi driver specifically told everyone about the sighting that the woman was not in distress. Now this would correlate, because if she was just gonna do some drugs with Yellow, she would not be in distress. She would be frantic that, oh, I just got off the boat, her head is clearing out, and she's like, I need to find a phone, I need to call my parents to like get my shoes or whatever, because she would have walked out of the ship without any shoes. So that's definitely weird as well. But then again, Yellow may have tipped some of his other associates at Curacao to snatch her up there, So either way, if the sighting is confirmed, then I'm definitely leaning towards that Amy was snatched up, because if she was seen after 6 a.m. for real at the bar near the disco, I'm leaning towards that she was snatched up, not necessarily for like a prolonged period of time where she's sold into sexual slavery. If that was the case, I feel like it was a quick event, I think if that was the case, she was probably murdered within the next few days, That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I keep on wondering. Then what's Yellow's motive there? Like, what's his
He's a
motivation?
crazy guy.
To do
He
that?
doesn't care about
Just
anything. Yep, he's a crazy wild dude. Just like screw it. Also, then in 2005, I don't know, man. Before we jump to the pictures that surfaced in 2005, so 7 years later, do you want to add anything to these theories, or do we jump to the pictures?
No, let's jump to the pictures. I think it's a good transition.
Right. So 2005, the family goes on Dr. Phil because there are some interesting pictures that were sent to the family by a crew of people who pretty much deal with these types of situations where people go missing because of sexual slavery, and pretty much these people find this picture, or I would say these pictures, on an online website. Now this woman, as you can see from this picture, it was named Jess. It's in the bottom. You could see the name Jess. So essentially this would sort of allude that this woman who was on this escort site for the Caribbean named Jazz definitely resembles Amy. And, we talked a whole bunch about this on our episode number 22, so let's not jump into all of the details too much, too heavy. Now, the only thing that we, I guess, have to sort of do here is to give our take. Do you think this is Amy, man?
I mean, the picture is really close, but I just, for my own reasons, I don't think it's her. I just think it's somebody. I guess some of my objections, like about how she looks like maybe a little bit thinner, or the face is a little bit less heavy looking. I mean, obviously someone could lose weight in that situation. I don't know. I just keep on thinking. So I guess if we were going to look at the explanations, I'm still going towards what we said before, especially because of the clues, like the shoes, because of some other things. But yeah, to me, the picture, I get why everybody looks at this picture, because it does look pretty mysterious and compelling.
I mean, this is pretty much everything that we, you could see this on our YouTube page. We're showing an image that pretty much like sort of explains why this would be Amy. So her eyebrow shape is the same in the picture. Her eye shape and size are the same, as well as the blemishes near the left eye. Unusual curvature of the upper ear portion of the helix. Also, angle of the ear is nearly identical. Also, an unique abnormality on midsection of the nose found on both, both Amy and this woman in this mysterious picture. This can be seen even though the noses are at different angles. Very similar cheekbone angles, as well as eye shape match up. Chin angle and eyelid shape, as well as brow ridge, all match up. Forearm length and bone structure is very similar. When the heads are at similar positions, the features match up nicely. I mean, yeah, man, definitely. Look, I mean, they do, but then again, they don't also at the same time,
Yeah, I mean, it's a big world. There's a lot of people that look like each other. I mean, I think it is one of the ones, though. If you were someone that was going to believe the human trafficking theory, this would be, I think, the scariest piece of evidence for sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So, I mean, this is where I think it's important. I guess once again referring to because I just listened to it so recently, but this is something that was always part of the story, both in case file and also just the general evidence in it. There was always this issue where for whatever reason, Amy didn't want to go, like you mentioned, and it was the family seems extra concerned about this, but didn't seem like they were alarmed, like, oh, what's wrong, Amy? Why don't you want to go? It was almost like, oh, here's Amy doing her thing. And that's what I kind of want to start to address is, did she have some kind of depression? Even though the FBI and the family said, I think there's lots of reasons to not want to talk about a relative's depression or something like that.
Yeah.
I think it's important to be honest about that because, yeah, it is a topic. It's like not super... It's a little bit embarrassing, I guess, sometimes to talk about mental illness or just challenges, but I couldn't help but be struck, like I don't know, even though for all the reasons we said, cruise ship may not be anyone's favorite kind of vacation, it seemed like everybody else was
Not
down
mine,
with
man.
the plan except for her.
Yeah, but I'm not going on a cruise ship, so I'm not gonna jump too hard. I know we're leaning towards, since we've talked about this on our first episode. I don't know, man. If someone came up to me, there's a free cruise ship ride. I'm around, like, I don't know, like the Baltic states or whatever, or like in the Mediterranean. I'm thinking, do I really got time? Like, and especially she was my age. She just bought a new dog, by the way. So this would also sort of disregard your line of thinking, because I think we are a little bit like, our opinions may differ here a little bit. She did have a new dog that she always wanted. She had graduated and she had a new job lined up for her, so everything seemed fine, and the family members also stated that she was doing fine. So just for the fact that she may not wanted to go on the cruise ship, which I would be exactly the same. I'd be like, I'm not sure if I got the time to go on a pretty much floating toilet where people take pictures of you all day. I'd be hesitant as well, man. So I'm not sure, man. But yeah, definitely go on with what you're saying.
I mean, no, I get it, because it's funny because I'm someone that's like, I'm a pretty light sleeper, and I think some years definitely I was super picky. Like I remember at one point I didn't even want to sleep over at friends' houses just because I was like, sometimes some people are homebodies, right? Yeah. And I think like my kids like that too. Okay, so fair enough. But yeah, they seem so quick to dismiss it. But you're like, look, the shoes were on the deck. Her cigarettes are gone. She's gone, and he never heard. Even though
shoes are there. Oh, she's gone.
The
she's
shoes
gone.
Are on the
So,
deck.
sorry, man. I heard you wrong. She's gone. Yeah.
So the shoes are there, but she isn't. He never heard. Her father never heard her come back to the room. Doesn't seem to be like any more evidence. I wish that we would know if there was a way.
Almost forgot. I had this asset. Almost forgot to show this. This right here, my friend, is the layout of the apartment. Now, this will give us a better, understanding of what's up. So basically, this is the layout of the apartment. Now, I believe the balcony is in the top right corner. That's where you enter the balcony. It's near this sort of lounge area or whatever in the house. I mean, this is a pretty nice apartment, by the way. So what I'm saying here is, now we don't see how the balcony looked exactly. I think I have a picture. I'm not really sure. Yeah, this is the picture. I'm not really sure if this is the exact room. I definitely know that this picture is from that ship. Not 100% certain if this picture is from the exact room. Now, the railing is pretty high, so it's pretty hard. And even if this is not the exact picture, it was stated that the railing was pretty high. The railing being high sort of alludes that falling over, even if you're drunk by accident, is hard. It's definitely hard to do that if you're not doing some crazy stuff. But then again, below this balcony, it was not seaman. There was another level.
Right.
So yeah. So that's what I'm thinking. Like, yes, it would sort of seem that she like fell out or like committed suicide, which is like weird. It doesn't, to me, that definitely doesn't seem like she wanted to commit suicide. Now I don't know what was going through her head. Maybe she was suicidal at that point, I don't know. No one really knows. But then again, it doesn't seem that she would. At least all of the things that she had going on back home would not lead me to think that way. And then again, there was another level after, like below this balcony. It was not straight up the sea. So
what,
I mean,
what do you make of all the postcard? So that was, one thing was the dog that she adopted. She actually hadn't even taken custody of the dog yet. So the dog was going to be hers once she got back. It's kind of a weird thing. It was like, I'm going to go on a trip. Like part of me wonders if she did that to kind of give herself a reason to come back. Do you know what I mean? And she did also a lot of postcard writing, and I'm like, this is like pretty much before email. It's like 96, right?
This is good.
Is that what year it was?
Man, this is good. You just dropped some really good like interesting things to think about. Maybe she bought a dog just to have something to go back home to.
Yeah.
Ooh, man.
To give that reason, and then so you and the investigators make good points. Yeah, there was a balcony right underneath hers. It does seem like it would be pretty hard. Like if anything, she would have just fell on the balcony below and got hurt, and they would have had blood and that. So like it may kind of puts the onus on her really having to make a pretty extraordinary effort to do something if she was going to do something, right?
Yeah.
So I fully agree with that. I mean. Yeah, so that's the only thing that I can't.
But just came to my mind. What if she was suicidal? What if she didn't jump out maybe what if she didn't jump out of like the balcony? What if she just left her shoes, just took her cigarettes? Because then again, she would be jumping to her like suicide with like cigarettes. You know what I mean? Like, because the cigarettes were gone. So she would have, if she was jumping, she would have had to bring her cigarettes to the afterlife. That's like, I don't really see that happening, man. But then again, maybe she took those cigarettes and
stuck them in her pocket. Yeah,
no. Maybe she went out.
Yeah.
Maybe she went out. Maybe she did dock, and she was suicidal, and she did disembark, and she, just vanished in Curacao. Maybe she really was like that. I don't know, man. Maybe that's why she was hesitant. Maybe she was hesitant because she knew that this would give her an option to like disappear or whatever, and she probably take it. But this is just speculations, because there's literally nothing besides that little fact that she was hesitant to go on the cruise ship. There's nothing else that would sort of indicate of her suicidal thoughts, right? I mean, at least for me, I have not heard anything. Maybe you have more information.
There's never been, for all the research and the multiple times we've covered this, and all the people's comments, there's no one's ever said like, hey, she had a history of this or that. It's just something about her family being so concerned about her going out, always concerned about where she was. Like,
maybe they knew something we don't, right?
Yeah, because I feel like when I was on vacation, and I always joke that like sometimes I feel like my parents didn't worry enough about me, but yeah, like they don't for whatever reason that was. But yeah, like sometimes I'm like, it seems like they're kind of, for an adult woman who you said is like your age, you're a grown-up professional now, like why are they so constantly worried about monitoring her? And even like her on the deck, like why does he care so much that she's out there? Like you said, it sounds like it was pretty safe. Supposedly the guardrails are made to like not fall over easily. They're not like waist height or something.
Right.
So what's all the I don't know. Yeah.
The crazy theories. Let's jump to the crazy stuff. Remember the crazy one I gave you before we started recording about how potentially Ron Bradley is responsible? Let's just not stick to it. First of all, I definitely don't believe that's what happened, but it's a theory and we sort of have to mention it. So there's this theory that Ron Bradley, now I'm really sorry Ron if this is not the case, and if you're listening to this, there's a theory that Ron, and I didn't make this up, I just read this online and I'm just gonna say it right now. Ron Bradley was abusing Amy, and he pretty much saw like he was abusing Bradley somehow on the balcony, and then Bradley somehow either jumped off the balcony, then jumped again to the sea, whatever. She was pretty athletic, so I wouldn't put it against her to be able to do this. She jumps somehow to her death to the water. Now Ron sees this, and he needs to now make up an alibi. So he goes immediately to search for Amy Lynn Bradley. Now this is a weird situation. Now this is definitely weird. He spends the next hour searching for Amy in the ship. However, he doesn't, after the 1 hour of searches, he doesn't return to the apartment, to the fucking, to the, sorry, to the, what's it called, the room, right? He doesn't, after searching for her for an hour, he doesn't return to the room to make sure if she's not back, because that's a pretty irrational thing to do. Okay, I've been searching for an hour, maybe she's back. He doesn't do that. He goes straight to the security guards and he's like, yo, my daughter is missing, can you help? It's like he knew there was no way she returned. It's like he knew there was she wouldn't return.
It's pretty weird too, because like, I mean, I guess we pointed out in the Madeline McCann thing, people do crazy things, like how her mom ran away from the room with her other babies inside. But like without even thinking about them, like, this one's gone, I guess it's all over. Yeah, I mean, it is weird because it's not like you're. I mean, A, almost nobody had a cell phone back then, and B, on a cruise ship your cell phone doesn't work, right? So how would you even get in contact with your room? Unless I guess he could have been trying to call his room back during that search. Maybe that's what we're not hearing, is maybe he was calling back to the room.
I mean, it's a pretty crazy theory. I'm definitely not leaning towards that Ron Bradley was abusing Amy Lynn Bradley and that's how she died. I really have no indications to believe so. But if he really did search for her for the whole hour and then just returned, not returning after an hour of searching and just going straight to the police, to the security, not double checking if she had returned, it definitely would seem like he knew that Amy was gone, So that's just
well, then I mean, I almost think that could even tie into our other theory that he strongly suspected suicide. Yeah, that he was like, oh, she finally did it.
But then again, why? But then again, why would he not go immediately to the security and tell them, I suspect that she's overboard and she could still be rescued? Why would he be an alibi? Why would that doesn't really tie into me, when I think about it, because why would he, you know what I mean? Like, I think you know what I mean. That
why wouldn't he go to that first?
Yeah, exactly. Why would he pretend to be looking for her for an hour when he knows that she could potentially still be saved?
Yeah, I mean, it's true. I mean, I guess the only thing I was thinking, if he was embarrassed about it, maybe he was like, well, they'll come up to that. I won't have to to say that, it'll be like, oh, they'll go down their checklist and did she fall off, and they'll stop the engines and look right away, because that'll be the first thing they think. And then maybe as the time went on, and
but then again, they spent so much time and resources, and they were like, I don't know, man. They spent so much time trying to find her. If they knew she was gone, then they probably leave it. They probably didn't. That's why I think that's a stupid theory, and it's not really what happened. So yeah,
it's just so weird. Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is bewildering. I mean, I don't know. All these disappearance cases. It's like, how can somebody in this day and age, or even that day and age, which, let's face it, now this has been, I mean, that's like half my life ago now, and so much has changed since then. But yeah, I mean, maybe that's why these cases are so compelling, because you always wonder, like how can a person just disappear? And I don't know. I keep on thinking that it's a lot easier when you're near a beach, when you're near a big body of water, when you're near, you're going on a big boat or a plane or something like that. Something where you're moving across big distances. I feel like that's just raising your risk. It's not saying you deserved it. It's just saying, look, let's face it. When humans were like hunter-gatherers, even that was pretty risky, but you weren't traversing very massive distances in a day, right?
Exactly.
Like back in the caveman days or the tribal days, the furthest you were going in a day was like, what, 20 miles max? That's like a long day. 20 miles is, I don't know if you've ever hiked. So 20 miles is like, what, about 30 kilometers?
No, I never did that.
It sucks.
I bet.
It takes you all day long. Yeah, I've done it before. It's a couple times in my life, and it's a heck of a day. Yeah, like 30 kilometers, right?
Yeah, I don't think I don't know about that.
But now it's like, I don't know, with technology, we're all over the place, right? You can go across the continent in a day or 2 continents in a day, but it's like with that power comes danger, and maybe whether that danger is, from like the physical or from other humans, just because that was
normal, you never know.
Yeah, before cities. I mean, once again, in those tribal days, like you only ever ran into like maybe 100 people total, right?
Yeah. Yup. So man, I'm pretty sure we're pretty much said everything we had to say about this case now. I guess since I'm not really certain if we're returning to this case anytime soon, I wouldn't put against us like to return for the 3rd time eventually, especially if something new happens. But I think for a while we definitely have to leave it here, at least for the next, I don't know, year or so. So let's jump to some sort of a conclusion, because this is the last thing that people will hear from us regarding this case for a long time. So just to not leave everyone like hanging, I guess we still have to go to the theories, what we are leaning towards now. I think I will go first, and I really think that she did not commit suicide. I really don't think that she committed suicide. I just don't think so, man. I think that I can see your end of the reasoning why she may have done it, but I just can't go there. At least not yet. I need some more details. At least something more regarding her mental state. Maybe I can uncover something in my additional researches in the future. But for now, I can't go there. I'm thinking that she, I'm definitely thinking that she didn't disappear on her own accord, let's put it that way. I'm not gonna say that it was Yellow or the band or whatever. I'm leaning towards that they did some suspicious things, and I'm thinking Yellow was probably not having the best intentions, definitely. So I'm not gonna go jump to them immediately, but I'm thinking whatever happened to her, it was she didn't want that to happen. I think that she didn't want whatever happened to her to happen. And then again, for the theories that she was sold into sex slavery for multiple years, I don't know. I'm not really certain. The picture is similar, but I'm also, as time goes on, I'm sort of leaning towards that the picture is not Amy. At first I was like, yo, that's definitely Amy. Now I'm thinking that picture may not be Amy, and I'm thinking that she probably stepped off that boat and she ran into problems immediately, and she was dead in a few days, at best. There, I think probably even the same day she was dead. So that's my end of the year. Yeah, like I was sort of really leaning towards that she, either by being drunk or by suicidal attempts, just killed herself. Now I'm thinking that she did step off that boat in Curacao, and I'm thinking that she ran into issues immediately. That's what I'm thinking.
I think I'm still holding my stance that for some reason I keep getting this vibe from the family that they were extra worried about her for some reason. I feel like the FBI that supposedly said that they discounted these other theories. I don't know. I mean, if they did, I feel like maybe that's what they told the family, because like it's just a hard conversation to have with somebody who's in denial or just adamant that you're wrong, to tell them, especially because there's like religious issues with killing yourself, depending how religious the family is.
Yeah.
I feel like they had enough times where like somebody lost it on them, where they're like, look, because look, the fact is their actions don't speak to them not thinking that she wasn't, that she didn't kill herself. They didn't. From what we hear, they didn't take a lot of the evidence seriously. They never looked at that video that supposedly the cruise ship company was going to give. To me, it was treated like a suicide, and I just, you know what I mean? Like everything about it, I totally get. I think that's why, because there's so much gray area or gray room for doubt. I think that's why this is such a popular case. But I don't see it. I don't. I will say that the other evidence is compelling, but I don't believe that she was, because I don't even really.
The sightings, I don't buy the sightings. Like the only thing that, because I had like the military guy that saw her in the brothel the next year and didn't report her because he went to a legal brothel, where, because Curacao has pretty much Netherlands rules, right, laws. So in Netherlands you could do prostitution. So prostitution was pretty much legal. It was not like, I'm not really certain if in that particular club that this military guy, this Navy SEAL was at, I'm not really certain if that was a place where you could, did they have like the certificates for prostitution or whatever. I'm not sure if they had that, or like sex work, my bad. I'm not really sure if they did that, but you could probably report it, you know what I mean? And if you didn't report it back then, all of a sudden 2 years later you're gonna report it. Why would you do that? Because the family now offers 250 G's for information. Maybe that's why you're reporting it. I don't know. That's slimy. I don't think that's real life situation right there. That's not a real life situation right there with the Navy SEAL. The Canadian woman who saw an exactly the same looking woman on the beach in Curacao on the same year in 1998. I don't have too much details on that sighting. I did try to research that particular sighting, did not find anything online, so can't really speak on it. I feel like if it was really legitimate, I think there would be more information regarding it. So, and then 2005, there was a department store bathroom sighting in Barbados. So in a whole nother island nation of Barbados, that there was this woman being like bossed around by two men, or like three goons, Colombian looking goons. Not really gonna buy that as well, because it's 7 years later. So what I'm saying is that the eyewitness accounts, I'm not buying that stuff at all. But the only thing is that picture. That picture is the only thing that sort of is sort of could explain that she may have been still alive for a long time now. I'm thinking that she probably died immediately on Curacao. That's what I'm thinking. So yeah.
I mean, even that theory, I guess the one thing I gotta pick, she doesn't seem adventurous. I don't know. I wish we knew a little more about her. I mean, watch it'll turn out she was like some big party animal or something, but she seems like kind of a, Dr. Grande always has the good descriptions for the five-factor personality model, and one of them has to do with like whether someone's openness to new experiences.
Yeah.
I don't know. To me, she seems like the opposite of that. Like she doesn't seem super open to new experiences. She seems kind of uptight, like not into doing it. Because I think for sure, like there's other people that they get themselves into trouble all the time.
Because the waiters, remember the waiters that offered to get her to the same place, where Natalie Holloway went missing 7 years later. Amy said to her mother that she wasn't gonna do anything with those creepy guys,
Actually, that's a perfect example. So Natalie Holloway was like the opposite. So in that five-factor model, which I'm just, I've heard that from Jordan Peterson too. But yeah, like the openness to experience, like she was the opposite, right? She was looking for like drugs and fun and excitement. She doesn't say that she deserved whatever happened to her. Just saying it's riskier, right? So I always think that that's one of the tragedies is sometimes people go on vacation and like you never really think that you might die on your vacation. And like I've even run into this. Like I've gone and done like maybe some kind of risky snorkeling or went swimming someplace, and later on I'm like, oh wait, that was way dangerous. Like that I almost died a couple times there. Like that would have been stupid, but it happens for sure. Like it happens all the time. People die on their vacation because they somehow think like they got to make good on it, right? Like, oh, I'm paying for this thing. Yeah, so I don't know.
Well, they weren't paying. That's the thing. They weren't paying.
Right. That's
they
true.
Paying.
Yeah. So
I mean, man, you want to call it a day or something?
Yeah, I feel like we've hashed it pretty good. I mean, I think we'll probably still get a lot of impassioned comments on this one.
No
because
doubt.
For whatever reason, I mean, really, dude, like for all the things we've covered, I never thought that this would be the one.
Neither did I, man.
So much
this
attention.
was,
like,
yeah.
I mean, come on, guys. Haven't you heard my Fermi paradox? Like, can't we argue about Fermi paradox? I don't know. But people like what they like. So, yeah, I think it's fascinating. Someday, I don't know. There's some other missing people. Like, there's one we've talked about. There's Michael Negrete was the one that was always my favorite, the UCLA one. I think maybe it's ones that like are close to me because like they match my demographics, but there's another one that was like actually another a Boy Scout kid whose name was also Negrete, who disappeared. And that's one like I'm always surprised that was here locally in California. This kid disappeared up in the mountains, and like you never hear about it. And I'm always like that's, I guess maybe that's my Amy Lynn Bradley, where maybe my nightmare would be getting lost on like a trip up in the mountains and never getting to go home. And maybe that's my version, like being a different kind of demographic a little bit. Like I'm not worried about being sold into sex slavery, but I might get might get worried about So maybe that's what this is.
Yeah.
This is sort of like a way for people to project their fears of the outside world, and this is someone who really disappeared. Like there's enough gray area.
You're right.
For what happened to her that people can kind of project like their worst nightmare. So that's my 2 cents. So I don't know, cool show, cool. Really interested to see how this performs.
Yep. So guys, thank you for sticking with us throughout. If anyone has listened to the entirety of this show, definitely leave a comment in the YouTube comments or whatever, and just let us know what you think about the show, if you can improve on some areas, and obviously tell us if you sort of are leaning the same way that we are leaning, or if we did a bad job once again, and did we miss some more details? Because guys, we are definitely open to all sorts of theories. Now I'm switching up my line of thinking after a second round of research. So I don't know, guys. The conversation is still here, and if once again this generates a whole bunch of attention, then we might end up doing episode. This might be like a multiple show thing for us with this particular case, like how some people do it with like Maura Murray. That's another one that we should return eventually. So yeah, guys, thank you for listening. I hope everyone enjoyed this podcast. I hope everyone will have the great rest of the weekend, and catch us next week on episode number 53. We will be covering something new, definitely something we have not yet done before, so that's going to be exciting. And for now, guys, subscribe if you enjoyed, leave a like, that helps us out, and peace out.